about how fortunate we are to have a board that invests in continuing education professionally for elected, appointed, and staff. And it helps us tremendously. We appreciate it. And we're excited as well to extend that to Preston in his position. Again, I realize and I take full responsibility for the fact that I am asking for 53.8 over the original 51.8. I feel comfortable in asking for that. I understand that is a variant from when we had discussions on that. But I guess with that, is there any other questions in particular for Claire or for Preston?
No, I won't.
Don't worry, we have plenty of ribbing for him tomorrow, if he is indeed.
As long as you don't come to my door, we'll get wrong.
And there's no sirens on the top of your car.
There's not. My Honda CRV is not a emergency vehicle.
Did I see your?
I have a question, but it's not for Claire or Preston, I don't think. Have we been able to, or will we be able to get any grant money for the training aspects?
For the training, you know, I don't know, but I do think that that's something that we can take a look at the PAR plan, because I think PAR plan does do something with that for the certification.
Yeah, there might be some things after the meeting this week that might be good news, so.
Yeah. Okay, that's terrific. And we have, the first call Claire made when she found out that the certification wasn't until February was to me, and she's like, oh, you're not going to believe this. And so we were bummed about that. However, you know, you got to take things that you wish were different and make the best out of them. And we've done that in researching the opportunities that are there currently, as well as how we'll utilize some of those classes right out of the gate. So really comfortable with that. So go ahead.
Okay, I would make a motion to approve the offer employment to Preston Taylor for East Bay Township in the amount of $53,800 with employment effective date July 13th of 2021. Where'd he go?
Where did he go? Okay. Motion is made by Lyle. There's support by Walters. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by no? Welcome to the township. We're happy to have you back.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, we'll see you tomorrow is your
7 a.m.
start time?
7 a.m.
He already has the door codes, so.
I figured you had that taken care of.
Okay, great. We will move on to, next on our agenda is East Bay Ambulance, Nick. And there's two items on the agenda. The first is the ACME request for service, and this is an update to the board. No specific action is, yeah.
Did we change, it's supposed to be the planning commissioner.
Oh, I'm very sorry. I missed that line right off there.
Doesn't matter to me, we can do it later, but I just want to make sure.
Cool your jets there for a second, Nick, and we'll do the planning commission appointments. Thank you for keeping me on task there. Okay, so with this, we have two planning commissioners. We have two planning commissioners that are leaving the planning commission. They have served the township well and for an extended period of time. As I've told them both, they are welcome to reappointment. But at this point in their life, for various reasons, they have served their community and are happy to be engaged in other things in their life. One of those appointments goes through July 31st of 22, and one goes through July 31st of 24. They are 3-year appointments, so there are 6 members and a board appointment, and of the 6 members, 2 are appointed every year so that there's a constant rotation. So I have been in discussions with Carl Ferguson. Many of you know Carl Ferguson from when he worked with Leah years ago. He contracts out now. He has worked with us writing grants. He wrote the Arbutus Lake No. 5 grant for the DNR Trust Fund. He's just recently written a fish habitat grant for us and a USDA grant. So he is well-versed in local government, and he also has lived in the township since the mid to late 90s, raised a family here. I can't remember the exact age of his children, but I have to think they're somewhere out of high school or the end of high school and into college. It seems like they're right around that time span, just a stage younger than mine and a stage older than yours. And he was agreeable and interested in being appointed to the Planning Commission. I was happy to hear that. His temperament is very much a level-headed. We'll seek all the information and analyze and listen to staff and public and fellow Planning Commission members. So I'm happy to offer him for an appointment, and I would have that appointment for the one that goes from July 31st, 2021, and upon taking the oath until that July 31st of 2024. And the second position, I have talked with someone who I believe was interested. I haven't been able to connect with them with kind of summer vacations here at the end, so hopefully we'll be bringing that to you in August. And then as well, with Ted Henschel, he is the ZBA liaison from the Planning Commission. So at the time of this going out to the board, I did not have confirmed commitment, but I did ask planning and zoning staff who they would recommend, and Paul Gonzalez topped their list. I did contact Paul, and he is willing to serve in that ZBA position, and that would be upon taking the oath, and then that runs, I think the additional information that was sent out to you today, that's on the last page of the packet, says then that would be for a term beginning immediately and upon oath of office through July 31st of 2023, which is when his Planning Commission appointment ends. So with that, I'm here to answer any questions. Claire's here to answer any questions. A motion or comments would be appreciated.
And they can take their oath before 7/31, but their effective date is 7/31.
Okay, very good. And just out of curiosity, if they take their oath after, they still have a 7/31 date, I think, don't they? Yeah. Okay,
Yeah, that one does not move.
yeah.
And it's not like Board of Review where they have to take that oath within 10 days.
I know, isn't that nice? Who knew 10 days would be so hard to do it, by the time you've thrown a weekend there and,
It happens.
right.
I will make a motion that we accept the appointment of Carl Ferguson to the Planning Commission with a term of expiration of 7/31/2024, beginning 7/31 of 2021. I did that backwards. And Paul Gonzalez to be the liaison for the Zoning Board of Appeals with his appointment beginning 7/31/2021, with that term expiring 7/31/2023.
Okay, very good. Is there support?
Support.
Okay, a motion is made by Sue Cortate and supported by Walters. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by no? Okay, the motion passes, and we will be, Sue, you or I will be in touch with them tomorrow, let them know. I think they both know that they have to, if it was successful tonight, that they'd have to come in and take their oath, and they know when they're starting on meetings and so forth.
Carl will have additional paperwork as a new staff member,
Perfect.
as an appointed official. But Paul will just have to take his oath and he'll be set.
Okay, that sounds great. All right, well, now we'll move on to East Bay Ambulance. Nick? Nothing like pulling the carpet out from under you. I'm sorry about that.
I got legs. I can stand up and sit down.
So we have two agenda items under East Bay Ambulance. One is the update on the Acme request for service, and we do have Doug White here from Acme Township. The last we had spoken to the board, it had just been to the Acme Township board, and then that information, since they were interested, came to our board. They have looked at it again. You and I went back on the numbers again. So, and then the second thing we have is a wage adjustment regarding part-time employee, and so I'll let you take it away from there.
Yeah, so what we wanted to do is present what we sent to Acme Township as a proposal. We gave them two different options, like you guys had asked to. We gave them the option with us providing a medic, the ambulance and supplies with a Metro firefighter contract driver, and then we gave them the option of a fully staffed ambulance as well. And they had a discussion at their board meeting, and they want to wait until August. They were just getting some of that information, so they're going to wait till August to make a decision. But we just wanted to include you guys on what we sent to them and where those numbers kind of sat and what kind of, Beth and I sat down and went through.
We sharpened that pencil, didn't we?
Yeah, we-
Every contract.
We went through all the contracts that we have, broke them down based on what would be at an additional cost or what would be costs that we would share for that stuff. So like some of our contracts, like our, the maintenance agreements on our cots and the monitors and stuff like that was broke out per unit that would be used, and that cost was split from there. And then, you know, Beth, when we sat down, Beth and I, we talked about it, and our recommendation would be to use the Metro fire driver model, and conversations with Chief Barker as well. And if you have questions on that, he's here to answer those tonight too.
As a matter of fact, Chief Barker, if you want to pull up a seat up here, you're welcome to join us up here. I asked Pat if he would mind coming maybe to speak a little bit from Metro's perspective on that type of a model as well. So go ahead, Nick. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, you're good. That was pretty much.
So, Pat, again, for the board's clarification, both of the options that we talked about are there, whether all those employees are East Bay Ambulance or whether we do that model. Could you talk a little bit about how that model works now? And then, any change or difference, if any, if that were East Bay Ambulance, and why we might want to keep it that way or might not want to?
Sure. When Northlight came to Acme Township and presented an opportunity to them to provide an ALS ambulance to the citizens of Acme and surrounding areas, it was for 16 hours a day, 365 days a year. Because it's a pretty expensive venture, they asked Acme to provide a driver. So the state of Michigan requires that driver to be a licensed EMT. So they turned to us. We provided a driver, and it's worked out very well. We've never missed an opportunity to serve in that driver's seat. Plus, that employee that's in that driver's seat is also a firefighter. So Acme, we only have one firefighter there, so having another firefighter there is always great, because if you get an ambulance, a car accident or a fire or whatever, the two firemen jump in the fire truck and go, and the ambulance follows them. We've always provided a driver to that ambulance should they get an ambulance call while they're on that fire or rescue or whatever. So it's worked out for us because our staffing at Metro is just like everybody else's in the world. We're having a tough time finding part-time employees. One of the problems that we've had recently is the fact that the current vendor, Mobile Medical Response out of Saginaw, merged or took over the operation of Northlight back in December 1st of this past year. We've had trouble staffing it because that rig's never there. It's gone a good percentage of the day handling calls on the west side of town. So that's a problem that Doug has had, the citizens of Acme have had, and recently it's got worse because MMR's had so many of their employees that have resigned and moved on to other opportunities. So we've had to move full-timers into Acme to fill that hole in the part-time employees. It's easier to staff them at Station 12. But nonetheless, we've given Doug a proposal of what it would cost to have a 24-hour employee at Acme should Acme and East Bay agree to that. Losing that opportunity to have a Metro driver on there would create a big hole. It would for Acme, because we now don't have money in our budget to put another person there. The Station 8 in Acme does cover a fair amount of East Bay Township from Station 8, all of Holiday Hills, all the way down to 4 Mile, and that's kind of the boundary that we have out of Station 8. So it'd be a big loss to us. I also realize that, you guys have to look at what's best for your ambulance operation, but it's worked out very well. And until recently, with the problems that MMR has had, it's been flawless. So our firefighters show up to work every day, and when there's a vacation or a paid time off, we have a firefighter there. So the hope is that we're able to find, once the ambulance operation there becomes a little more stable, I think that we'll be able to find part-timers that'll start working there again.
Thank you very much, Chief Parker. Nick, how have you, if East Bay Ambulance, you have a pretty close view on how that situation's working too. What have you experienced or noticed?
As far as
The current situation is as staffing mechanism with
the staffing
Metro.
model works well. When I worked for Northlight, I worked as a paramedic out there quite a bit. It was a good experience. We didn't have any issues. And I know a lot of our staff, I don't think, has issues with it either. I know you guys had some concerns last meeting that we talked about this, and that's when Chief had adjusted their prices to prevent some of those issues that Glenn had brought up, to prevent the subsidizing of them. And then when Beth and I went through, we talked about if we did a mid-year 2021 contract with Acme, we wrote down, and in the letter it says there'd be an upfront capital and HSA kind of thing for our employees that we need to hire to offset that. That way we as a township aren't subsidizing Acme's EMS as well. And yeah.
So you can see from the letter that went to Doug, we have what East Bay, the general cost there that Nick and I were looking at, and then East Bay Acme with the Metro driver. That is a bump for us. How would we validate that bump, or what do we?
So with that bump is basically, like I said last time, we're gonna have a half of a FTE at Station 9 that we would cover with an ambulance, because we would hire 4 paramedics, 3.5 of them would work at Station 8, and then the other half would work at Station 9, covering our primary ambulance.
Could you just say that in reverse?
Let's see. So we would add a half of a person, a full-time employee at Station 9 to cover one 24-hour shift a week at Station 9.
Okay.
And then they would work their other 24-hour shift at Station 8 to make sure there's 7 days of coverage over there.
So that's the reason for that additional amount there. Then we did include, and I think, if I'm not reading too much into it, and I had the same questions internally when we had discussions about the potential for just doing all East Bay ambulance staff to service the whole kit and caboodle and not do the Metro model. And we did look at that. It is a little bit more of a bump. Now that ends up relating back again to the full-time staffing that would be there. While that is not a bad option by any means, and we can definitely carry that out, no problem, Nick and I are intrigued because, and feel it's a better decision with that center column option with the Metro driver, because number one, it limits the expenses, and number two, we feel that the extra value and the flexibility that Chief Parker mentioned is valuable.
And having that extra firefighter can respond to our township as well as a benefit, because that's an extra firefighter for East Bay Township as well.
So again, Acme Township has not made any decisions on this. They had gotten this information. I think we turned this around in the 2 weeks following our board meeting here. And then it went to Acme. They had a meeting right then. So they only had this for a couple days. And then they were interested in continuing that analysis to see if they were interested, but didn't want to make a decision that night, which we didn't expect. And so again, we wanted to bring back the information based on those questions. Go ahead, Glenn.
If I'm reading this right, Acme's contract with East Bay Township would be $370,000 a year? Okay. That would be 24 hour, the same as what East Bay is.
No,
Why?
they would have one paramedic and the ambulance costs. So you have one paramedic 24 hours a day. Whereas we staff both people.
So we got two paramedics,
Yep.
24 hours.
Yep.
Okay, so they'd have one.
Yep.
Metro would pay for the other one.
Well,
Or
Acton Township.
Acton would
Actually,
pay
pay
Metro.
And it wouldn't necessarily be
well-
paramedic. It could be an EMT.
Yep,
Okay, well, what
Firefighter
I'm
EMT.
looking at is, if I look at your 2021 budget, and I take out the 250,000 for an ambulance under the capital, that's what that was for, right?
Yes.
two,
Okay.
Well, there's,
That's 745,000. So if it cost us 745,000, how can we service another area for 370,000? Because if we can do another area 370, how come we're not costing us
because
370?
we provide two staff members.
I understand that. And so two staff members, or one staff member is over 300,000 a year?
They don't have that in front of me right now.
one staff member is about 89,000,
Okay, but what I'm
87,000.
saying is when I back the ambulance out of your budget for 2021, I come up with $745,000 for expenses. Yet we're saying for Acme, we can do theirs with just one paramedic rather than two for 370,000. That's $300 and some thousand for one paramedic.
You can see that when you just go from the one
I guess I'm
person to
just
the
trying
two
to,
person.
because my biggest concern, I don't have a problem doing anything for Acme or Joint. My biggest concern is I don't want to see East Bay Township subsidize another township.
And you know, that's exactly the point, that when we're looking at that and when we're itemizing those costs that we're looking at as well, this just backs up, we built this cost up rather than down from this budget. However, they do coordinate. There are some, for example, the property taxes, there's some other things in the revenues. I'm looking at the 101 instead of the
I'm not really
210.
concerned with property taxes. What I'm concerned is, and if I'm looking at something in your budget that you have, and if I'm looking at something wrong, explain it to me. But like I said, when I back out the ambulance, I'm at 745,000 is what East Bay's expense is for 1 year for the ambulance. And when I look at what Acme is committed to pay 370,000, that's 50%, less than 50% of what we're spending, and we're only talking about one difference in paramedics. And I'm trying to put that together to find out why the big difference.
Well, and if you look at the East Bay giving two people, the I can't see anything. 1.3 million versus the 1.018, there's the $300,000 difference by adding a second person there too.
Yeah, it's
300,000 to add one person?
the staff at the second.
The thing is that you're missing is the one person only works 48 hours a week.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Then a
Yeah.
second person works 48 hours a week, so it actually adds up to what, three?
Three
and a half?
people.
Yeah.
As a matter
Three
of
and a
fact,
half.
we just heard that at the Metro meeting last week, or 2 weeks ago with the budget meeting, and I think I remember Pat or Tony saying, it takes three people to fill one slot, and I said, I can attest to that, because we had just been through all of these calculations with the ambulance. It takes us three full-time to do one slot.
Okay, so we're gonna have two people, so we're not even gonna have a full-time in Acme then. Because if it takes three people to fill one slot,
You're gonna have,
you only got two.
No,
you're gonna have 3.5 full-time people for that second truck. That's about $300,000. And then with that, the 70,000 is everything else on top of that.
Okay, maybe I can talk to you afterwards, and you can kind of explain this through my thick skull, because I'm just looking at total numbers.
Yeah.
And we
It is-
can,
We can go through the spreadsheet with you and show you the breakdown of everything and how it came out.
And actually, that's something too, if the board would like to do that, we can set that up as a special workshop or something where we go through, literally, we can show you our spreadsheet and every expense by line item. This was, sending something to Acme Township was, as requested from this board and as we anticipated, was not intended to be a detailed line item by line item, because what we're doing is we are not operating as an authority where we are jointly as boards operating this. This is a request for services, this is the contract, this is what it will be. And so based on the analysis, these are the expenses that we came up with under the two different staffing models. Now, from East Bay's side, and I'm just talking East Bay side, this is not in the information or the letter that went to Acme. We are very happy to go through literally that Excel spreadsheet and identify every cost that's in there. And we, like I said, we can do that in a special workshop, but we wanted to bring you up to speed and see what
Okay,
additional
well,
questions.
Like I said, the way I look at it, our expenses in East Bay is $745,000
We
for 1 year.
We start to share some efficiencies when we do this. When we add a second truck, there's certain other costs that don't come up. So there's certain things that'll stay the same, but even though we're adding staff, that we'll share.
Then why doesn't our cost go down?
Because we're gonna add a half of an FTE for our township.
Okay, that's a good answer.
And we, as well, what has been instituted in these numbers that we can show with this is the capital has been planned out accordingly. So we have a capital plan that is just for East Bay Ambulance, and then we have a separate capital plan that builds off of that, that actually adjusts some of the timing and incorporates in that second ambulance and the needs for that, like another cot system, all of those things, so. And part of that is the reason for, it's not just the benefits, but it's capital costs, or the reason that we looked at that startup cost, because we looked at each other and we were like, this is all great, we've done this for January 1st.
Yeah.
And what happens if they say, okay, great, September 1st, you know? And timing is an issue. Just so you know, from a operational standpoint, this has nothing to do with when boards choose or choose not to do something. But from an operational standpoint, do you want to talk about the timing that we feel we could pull off on worst-case scenario?
We could probably do it in 90 days. If we need to, we could even do it less when it comes to hiring people. We have people that are craving to come work for us. We're an employer of choice, so I don't think finding the staff would be an issue. We would probably hire some of our part-time staff to do that, so we would have to hire more part-time people to transition into that. But I don't see that to be a problem. It would be pretty quick operationally for us to do it, and it wouldn't be too many hassles.
Some marginal effect you're saying in here too is the fact that we are, you know, anytime you're expanding that system, we are taking some of those full-timers from some of our part-time staff. Now, that's going to be natural, and so we have to accommodate for that because it drives up the cost a little bit. The thing is well, then don't do it. So we don't want to drive that cost up to ourselves. The problem is that's not going to only happen if we do it. It's also going to happen if any other industry person provides that. We're going to experience the same thing. So, go ahead, Sue.
So if I heard correctly, Chief, you currently have 3 Metro employees at Station 8. 2 are dedicated for fire. 1 is dedicated those 16 hours a day to be the driver for MMR. No?
No.
Okay, that's why I wanted to ask. I wanted to make
So
sure.
we only have 1 employee there, full-time. The other employee there is a 16 hours on the ambulance, and then the other 8, Metro's paying for them to be in bed out there.
Okay, so you have 2 that are at 8, but 1 has 16 hours of different duty.
And it's dedicated to the ambulance. So that's that firefighter's first duty is to that ambulance.
And then don't forget, whatever service provider they have for emergency medical has a person there as well.
Understood. But we're talking about going to 24 hours a day 365 days a year.
Correct.
Two things come to mind. One is no disrespect to the staff of Metro. I respect them all. I am not confident if we enter into this with Metro, based on the reoccurring issue of our authority. I don't want Metro having any business in our ambulance. I do have concerns if they are driving the rig that opens up Metro into East Bay Ambulance. I don't want, my concern is the backs of East Bay residents built East Bay Ambulance. I don't want that going away. I want it to always stay
Those
At East
same
Bay.
people built the fire department at East Bay.
I
So
understand.
You own Metro. I don't,
We own one part of Metro. The decisions get overridden by other jurisdictions, and I don't want that affecting how we run our ambulance. There have been things in the past, so those are my concerns. And like I said, no disrespect. I see that you're upset about it. I don't mean it that way, but I see how, when we had sleeping quarters and we were in big trouble because another jurisdiction held those reins. I do not want that to become a condition to derail. I don't have the confidence that our problems are over. I would just assume that we stay with East Bay running the ambulance and Acme contracting if they want to. I'm not interested in this third rural township joining us. We're not an authority. We serve our people first. That's what they pay their millage for. That's what they expect, is that they will be serviced. And I think if we wear ourselves too thin, it's not going to do any of your people any good. That's my 2 cents.
So I think that those are really pertinent comments. I know where the source of a lot of those came from. I lived the pain of the source of a lot of those
Most
comments.
of us at this table did.
Yeah, and,
this table too.
yeah.
Of course.
And we don't want to repeat that. And I think that's something that Nick and I have been very cognizant of. While this, go ahead.
I think with this, and like Doug and I talked after the last meeting, Acme Township looking for a contract. They don't want to see at the table, they just want us to be able to provide a service for them. A good service for them, and then that's what we're looking for here. And it's the same thing with having a Metro driver. The only thing that the contract will say is that Metro's going to provide an EMT driver for 24 hours a day for every day of the year. They're not going to have a voice at the table as to what we do as an ambulance service and the decisions we make to provide the coverage that we do. That's up to you guys here.
I understand that as a philosophy. I do. I understand that as a total philosophy, and I would love that if that is what the Metro Board thought as a philosophy as well. And there's no guarantees that that is going to happen, and that is my concern.
If that's your opinion as a board, I think you need to do some soul searching whether you want to stay in Metro then.
So,
Because we keep hearing this from the boards, and I think it's something, because we're working our tails off to keep this authority moving forward. Our people have no township lines. We could care less where we're going, except it's in our 96 square miles. So it's got to be from the three people that own us. If that's the sentiment and the feeling out there, then we need to do something about it, because it's tearing our organization and our employees apart. It really is.
so Chief Parker, I completely understand what you're saying. I think that we need to give the board latitude to express what their concerns are. So this is a big change for not only Acme Township, but also East Bay Township. And as you know, we've invested a lot, and you've invested a lot personally. You've always been a big supporter of East Bay Ambulance. You are often pulling some of those holiday shifts sometimes, and I understand where the sentiment comes from. I truly do. Tracy can tell you, she has seen me in this office. Glenn has we've been through meetings together where we often feel frustrated after. But
You're awful nice on your word.
But things change. Situations move on. We are careful about some of those things. We're being very careful about this. One of the things I'd mention with this situation is there isn't quite the entanglement with this position. Again, I really, this is exactly what Nick mentioned, which is this is a hired hand through there that has no authority or bearing on East Bay Ambulance. I actually personally, hearing those comments and feeling that if I were going down that path, I would actually be more concerned with our entanglement with Metro with respect to Station 9 and how Metro manages or operates Station 9 and our ambulances in there. I think there's much more ability there to affect each other than this position. This position is simply, this is a position. It allows us to leverage that person and their salary to the greatest extent possible and make us as efficient. But, you know, that's, I don't think anyone, there's nothing that's right or wrong here, and I don't think we need to make any large decisions. Nobody was asked to tonight. This is, again, for information. I think it's great to hear and understand what people are saying. Matt and Tracy, you know, if you have anything else, always feel free to pipe up. I know that you do. But I guess at this point, I would be looking for, well, two things. I want to ask if Supervisor White from Acme Township would like to add anything. Don't feel like the need to if you don't care to.
No, I would like to add.
Okay, why don't you come on up? And then the second point that I was going to ask the board is really from this point forward, you know, what would you like to do as far as would you like to have that workshop where we itemize that financial information for you? Thank you, Doug, for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. You know, it's just like, you know, Nick said, we're not looking at joining, we want a contract. We would like to, or I'd like to go over a contract, not taking over any of your East Bay ambulances. In that, I believe either if we could make up something that would, I'm not going to be sitting here as a supervisor for the next 30 years. So there's going to be somebody that's going to take over after me. And hopefully we can come up with something that would work beyond what we're at. As far as using a Metro fire person, we hired that person to go in that truck. It has nothing to do with Metro other than if there is an emergency, when there is an emergency, they go there to the scene. It serves two purposes. Metro has two people at Station 8. We're setting out at the far reaches of the metro area. There should be somebody, two people there. I think everybody on the board would agree that to have that person will serve into East Bay too, if there is a call that comes in. So the way I look at it, it can be a win-win situation for both of our townships. I'd like to see it work. My board did receive, I received that, I think it was on Friday before our board meeting. Of course, our board meeting was after the 4th of July holiday. I'll be the first one to be honest. I was in Cherry Harvest at that time, so I was reading it on the cherry shaker in between tank changes.
We were like the federal government. We wanted to get out there on a Friday before, you know, press closed.
Friday at 4 o'clock.
Friday at 4 o'clock, you know.
But, and the board wanted to look it over more, which I think you can understand if you were to receive it.
Absolutely.
When you came to your board meeting today, you would say the same thing. I got to look over this a lot longer. And I'd be disappointed if, with my board, or anybody that would say, oh, yeah, this is good, or whatever. No, we aren't. I think you'd want to look it over yourself. And that's what the board decided. They wanted to look it over, hash it out between themselves. It's a big jump for us. I mean, who's kidding who? From what we pay right now for one Metro driver for 18 hours a day versus what we pay for the ambulance service and a Metro driver, or 2 East Bay drivers the whole time. I shouldn't say 2 or 1, it should be.
2 FTEs.
It's 3.5. And I think that's where Glenn was, when you're looking at that, Glenn, you gotta think of it not just as 1 at 85, but 3.5. And that brings it up a little closer to where it would look the same, because East Bay has 2 EMS people on the rig. So, at that's about all I have to say. If anybody has any questions for me as far as what we're looking for in Acme, it's a reliable service. I look at East Bay's ambulance service, and I'd say it's got to be one of the best out there in there. You should compliment yourself on that.
Thank you very much, Doug. Does anybody have any questions here for Doug in
Yes, I
particular?
just have one more.
Sure.
If you're currently doing 16-hour a day, that MMR person is not sleeping at Station 8, correct? How do you see that working in the future with 24-hour a day, 365? Do you have sleeping quarters for enough staff?
There's 2.
Yeah, their trailer out back has 2 separate
Yeah.
rooms in it.
Have you been out to that trailer?
We
I
toured it
have,
at
but
a
Yeah.
I'm thinking there's still Metro fire people there too. So is it 2 people or is it 3 people that's going to be staying there?
There would be-
That's,
There would be 3.
Right.
so someone's going to have to share a room.
Correct.
And what if we were to go fully staffed with East Bay? Would all 4 sleep there, or
There
would
would
there just
probably
be?
be 2 ambulance crew in one room and 2 ambulance crew in the other.
We have that same situation in Station 9 right now.
Just wanted to make sure I
Yeah.
understood.
No, absolutely, absolutely. One of the things I was just thinking of when Doug was talking is, a lot of people ask me what it's like to work with Doug White. You didn't know that. People ask me that, do you? And I think you just saw what it's like to work with Doug White. Doug is completely honest with you. And it's, well, and I love to hear him talking about setting something up that might work for an extended period of time with different administrations and to benefit communities. Because I think to set up that basis for something that could potentially be timeless and have a structure, and I think one of the things that we are on the same page with is we can agree on things, but it's not about what 2 supervisors think might work. It's setting up a structure that can be conveyed in legal terms and contracts and ratified by boards and believed in by boards. And that can really only be done with just a really honest approach. And that's what you see and hear from Doug when he says things like, who's kidding who? Because facts are facts. It's just the way it is. And so I tell him I enjoy working with you, just so you know. But as far as that, any requests from this board on how to proceed? Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I personally feel, I think we've kind of gotten the cart ahead of the horse. Since this is going to be a decision this board makes, I really think we should have sat down and discussed on what kind of contract we want to offer to Acme before they would have gotten involved, and then they could have made their decision based on what kind of service we want to supply. So when you suggest having a special meeting or whatever, study session, I really think that's where we should be, so we can be having this discussion amongst ourselves of what kind of service do we want to supply? Where do we want to see the future of East Bay Ambulance go? And at that point, then they can decide based on the information that we're going to supply them, instead of giving them a choice to do one way or the other, and then us a choice to go one way or the other, and then what if we don't agree? Maybe we decide we don't want to go the Metro model, but they really do, and you go back and forth. And so I feel that we've kind of gotten this pushed a little bit quicker along. In fact, I think the first time it was presented, it was kind of my understanding is that's what we would do, that we would discuss it and have further discussions on what we wanted to do. And now we're almost to the point where we're not quite, but tendering an offer. And I don't think we're ready for that. I really don't. So, and the other part, and I'm sorry you feel that way, Pat, but you got to remember the wound is awfully deep of not what Metro has done, but what the board has done, and certain individuals that are there. And that will keep coming up for a long time. And you're right, as long as we're kind of discussing a little bit too, is Station 9 should be funded more too. So anyway, that's where I'm at.
I think that's a good comment and support for doing a workshop where we take a look at those numbers and, validate the different models and doing that. Does that sound agreeable? Okay. All right. Does that work for you? Okay. All right. Sounds good. So Nick and I will talk and look at a calendar and get some ideas out to you guys as far as scheduling. Thank you very much for the discussion. It's a monumental structural change for both townships, and we really appreciate your thought and consideration. Nick, thank you very much for all of your work on this, and regardless of the outcome, it's very much appreciated, and definitely take pride in those comments regarding the services of East Bay Ambulance. Okay, you were onto the second item under East Bay Ambulance, which is a wage adjustment for part-time employee.
Yeah, so what we have is, I meant to do this a couple years ago, and then through everything else going on, it kind of got missed and got dropped. We have an EMT that's been an EMT for 14 years. He's been with us for 4. His wage is the lowest wage for our EMTs. So what we're trying to do is just bring him back up to where he should be, and adjust it from there. So you see he's paid at 15, 18. He's got his license in 2007, yet he's the lowest paid out of the 5 EMTs we have. So all we're looking is to adjust that, and then that way when we make our future market adjustments, as we move forward, everybody goes up to where they should be versus it always being an outlier.
Do you have some additional data there? It's very, very similar to what's on the cover sheet, but it's just organized.
Where people are.
It just, instead of the dates, it has the years of service. So this will just show you the licensure. It's first sorted by licensure and then sorted by years at East Bay Ambulance.
And this is considered a part-time employee?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
If you remember, we did kind of a scatter diagram that graphed people based on years of licensure, and we were looking for kind of to fit them along a curve, and we had an outlier. I believe this was that outlier that we had mentioned at the time.
Yep, this was an outlier, and for some reason or another, it just got missed as we moved forward.
Question. Now, what you're talking about is the wage should be $16.75 for somebody who's had a license for 14 years, correct?
Correct.
Is there nothing in there, so if somebody walked in tomorrow, come up from Chicago, they got a 14-year license, we would start them at $16.75, the same as the guy that's maybe lived in East Bay for 14 years, been licensed, and knows his way around. We don't look at that on,
We do a little bit. This EMT's been around, this 14 years is.
so
weird.
I'm not picking
And
out
we-
one.
A lot of our hiring is done laterally, yes. We do take into consideration the amount of time that they have had their license.
Okay, and regardless of how long they've been in the area,
That does play into it a little bit as well.
where is that on the wage scale? You see what I'm getting at? I'm not
Yeah.
trying to beat anybody up, but, and I don't have a problem with this individual but it seems to me that there should be something that plays into that, and it should be a progression within that year, however you break the years up. I don't even know how you do. Because if, let's say I was working, I got 14-year license, I've lived in the area all my life, and somebody comes from another area, doesn't even know East Bay, but he's had a license 14 years, he can make the same thing I'm making.
Correct.
So we probably wouldn't hire the second person. We would probably
No,
hire the
I'm-
first person.
Well, what I'm saying
And
is that someplace it should be broke out, so if somebody comes up and asks you, just like I did, there's a reason that, and there's a way that it's done, not,
Sure, so when we went back, when we did that analysis and did the scattergram, we have the wage range for part-time, full-time at that time. Now, that was built on the industry, where we wanted to target it to keep the ability to have people competitive at East Bay. It's also built on recognition of the licensure, so how long they've had the license, and to some extent, the years they've been at East Bay as well. Everybody has unique characteristics, I think, and I would say one of those is your familiarity with the issue. And I think that all goes into the hiring and maybe the finesse of the wages. But as a specific, list of criteria, that might not pop up as this is the criteria and here's the direct correlation to wage. What's that? I'm sorry?
And it's worth 50 cents or whatever.
Exactly.
Correlate it to a dollar figure would be difficult, I would think.
Yeah. So, go ahead, Sue.
Thank you. So when I saw this, I immediately went to our payroll module and wanted to see where others fell that I know are EMTs, not paramedics. And in looking at that, there's 5 that probably need to be looked at that are under $16 an hour. And some of them have worked for us since 2016. So they've shown that regardless of what they're getting paid, they've got a dedication to East Bay. They cover a lot of shifts. They do that on a regular basis. I guess I would have liked to see that all 5 of those were brought up. I guess one doesn't work for the township anymore. Their job doesn't allow them, so 4. There are 4 that I feel we should be discussing at the same time. We should have brought it as a group, not just one person. And I feel that they all should be brought up to that level.
Can I see your list?
Yeah.
Curious, huh?
This is what you got sent after we adopted the budget. So this one no longer takes any time.
Correct.
But this one, this one,
Just making sure that's it. So we have
This one
3.
and that one.
We do have 4 that are under $16.
4, not 5, 4, right? Okay.
yeah, I
We have 5
corrected
EMTs
myself.
that
One-
work
Oh,
for
okay.
us,
One has
and there are-
stopped.
Yeah, there are 4 that are under that $16
Right.
an hour.
And I guess, to me, I'd like us to look at it as all of them should be brought to that level. They're all providing a quality of care and pulling shifts. I think they all should be brought there.
Well, but part of I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
part of this is the longevity of how long they've had it,
Well,
right?
I'm looking at longevity with East Bay, was one of them starting in 2016. We've got one that started in 2018.
Right, he's got them listed in his cover
Right.
sheet.
No, I understand. I understand. And I just,
we're not going to solve this tonight. I would like to see move ahead with the motion to raise this individual up. But what I'd ask for is come back with something long-term, so every 3 months, we're not coming back and talking about raising somebody.
And that's kind of what this was initially, and then as we move forward, this takes the outlayer out of it, and as we move forward and do those market adjustments, like either a 3% or.
But it's going to be across the board. It isn't going to be one,
Yes.
and that's what I guess I'm asking for.
Yep, that's
And
what this
that's-
is doing, is to fix that outlier, make them even, or where they should be, and then as we do our market adjustments or our raises, it'll
I think you'll,
across the board.
you'll remember seeing all of those dots, and then there was the one outlier. This corrects that and allows us to do that in a uniform fashion. Whether we do it at the same time, at a certain time every year, whether we do it with the budget process, which probably it makes the most sense. But yeah, that is the intent.
Okay.
Yes.
We don't, Nick and I talked about this earlier, we don't disagree. That's our intended approach. Sometimes though, as you know, life goes on and things happen, and this is one of those that we want to seek to correct.
Pitter patter, get right at her, huh?
Well,
Okay,
with,
do you need a motion for this?
I do, sir, if you would like to make one.
I would make a motion to approve the update pay raise for Randy Rittenhouse to $16.75 an hour.
I'll second that.
Who's the support? Okay. Motion by Lyle, support by Matt Cortade, to adjust the wage from $15.18 to $16.75. Any further discussion?
And this will be moving forward, not for the hours he has worked.
Correct, correct. So it'd be effective, you can do it today's date. Okay, any
I
further?
would recommend that we make it effective with the pay period.
That'd be fine. That sounds good.
We're not fine doing it.
Sure, it is easier.
Like those mid-pay.
Yeah.
Oh, we like to make it difficult, so then during the week, people are like, how do we do this one? Okay, so any other comment?
Can I just ask that you take a look at this and bring the others forward with a recommendation?
So that will probably be with the budget cycle and with all of the rest of them, as we were mentioning, which is right around the corner. We're in, yeah, I know, look at his eyes get big, I know. Okay,
Probably need to take a vote.
thank you very much. Motion by Lyle, support by Matt Cortade. All those in favor indicated by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by no. Okay, thank you very much for the discussion and the motion. With that, we come to our second opportunity for public comment. And anybody who here has waited out for us for the 2 hours, welcome to public comment. Hi, Daryl. Commissioner Nelson, I'm so sorry.
No, I'm coming up as citizen Darrell Nelson of Acme Township. So I just want to thank the Acme Township, start over. I wanna thank
Know your
the
audience, right?
the East Bay Township Board for considering ambulance service or offering a contract to Acme Township. I fully understand you guys don't want to have your taxpayers supporting taxpayers like myself in Acme Township. That's a valid concern and something that should be answered. Acme Township doesn't want that to happen from what they're saying. As a taxpayer, I'm looking at several $100s more on my taxes based on the current contract. But to me, it's worth it. The service right now we're getting is spotty, not expected to get better. I'd be very grateful to have an opportunity like you guys are possibly going to offer to our citizens in Acme Township. So hopefully something can get worked out. I understand all your concerns and they're very valid. So, but thank you. Thanks for working on possibilities.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming this evening. Any other further public comment? Yes, sir.
I'm coming here as citizen as well, Pat Parker, 1470 Fairwood Drive. I just want to let everyone who's watching this and to you all, what an honor it was to put politics aside, is to have East Bay Ambulance be in the motorcade when President Biden showed up here. It shows how far an advanced life support ambulance has come in 3 years, that Nick and all of his people have done, to be asked to, if something ever were to happen to the president, he would be in the back of an East Bay rig going to Munson. So just thought that was politics aside, whatever your views on that, but to be asked to be in that position is a pretty prestigious opportunity, and, you know, thanks to Nick and his crew. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being at the meeting tonight. Any other public comment? Okay, I want to thank the board so much for your time and attention and diligence on these issues, and we will see you next month. Have a good evening, everybody.
I like our new desk.
Do you? Okay, very good. Well, Daryl, would you let the county know that we have some desks with green tops, if they would like?